The Calgary Police Service has charged a police officer following a drug investigation. In November 2015, members of the Anti-Corruption Unit were made aware of allegations of a CPS constable may have seized marijuana during the course of his duties, but failed to dispose of it according to procedure. Following a thorough investigation, the member was arrested late on Friday, June 3rd, 2016. Robert Cumming, 43, from Calgary, has now been charged with breach of trust, theft under, and possession of a controlled substance. His next court appearance is scheduled for Friday, July 15th, 2016. He has been suspended from duty and a decision is now being made in relation to pay. A professional standards section investigation will proceed upon the conclusion of the criminal process. And if you have some questions, I'll do my best.
How did they find the drugs?
How did they find the drugs?
Yeah.
You know what, I believe they were, a search of his residence took place, and through a search of his residence.
Of the police officer's residence?
Yes.
Okay. What sparked that?
Just the investigative process.
Again, was there a tip that was given to the anti-corruption?
My understanding was that allegations at the beginning of the investigation, you know, is what led to the findings on the 3rd of June.
How long has he been on the force?
Approximately 15 years.
And has he had, has he been a member that has had experience with seizing drugs from crime scenes? Is this something that he's done? Not that what he's accused of has he done before, but has he been used to being part of the unit that grabs drugs from crime scenes?
You know what? Right from recruit class, our officers are taught how to properly process exhibits, including drug exhibits. Having been a member of the drug unit myself, I know that the processes are very clear. Whether you're seizing drugs for an investigation and processing them to be tested, or whether you're seizing those drugs and putting them in to be destroyed, the process for both those avenues is very clear.
Is the investigation going further back then, not rather than just this one instance?
Yes. Yeah. We're continuing to investigate.
What purpose does he have for the drugs? Personal use or selling them? Or?
You know what? At this point, he's only been charged with possession.
And what's the quantity?
You know, I'm not sure.
What's kind of for people who might see the story and be either shocked or angered by it, from CPS's reaction, from your reaction, what's it like for the force to see one of their own members get charged with this particular kind of event?
Disappointed. You know, our members are probably on a whole very disappointed. The public trust and confidence is something we take very seriously. We don't like to disappoint the community when things like this happen, but at the same time, we want to be transparent when these things do happen, and that's why we're talking to you about it here today, and that's why we have an anti-corruption unit, is to make sure that we're properly investigating any allegations.
How long were the drugs in his possession?
You know what, that makes up part of the investigation, and I can't get into that.
When's the last time police officers have been charged with something like this?
You know what, it doesn't happen very often. My understanding is that the anti-corruption unit has been around now for approximately 6 years, and this is the second time they've laid a charge. And the breach of trust one, which is the one that's very serious that we're looking at, the most serious of the charges here today. I can only think of a handful of times in my career that we've charged police officers with that.
Now, what exactly is the breach of trust? If you could just go through that.
What exactly is the breach of trust?
Yeah.
With respect to this investigation?
Sure, yeah.
You know what? This officer, as discussed, was not properly processing evidence. So, in some cases, evidence that should have been put into our property room wasn't making it there.
So it's breach of trust protocol or public?
Breach of trust is the actual charge.
If the evidence wasn't logged but it was used to charge somebody else, what does that mean for those cases that are affected by this?
You know, I don't know specifically if that's how it would have played out, but I do know that we're working with the Crown, and our organization is working with the Crown to make sure that any cases that may have been affected by these findings are being reviewed.
So I was wondering about breach of his duty to properly process these.
Yeah, breach of trust.
Through a regular process like this, when you're, was it acquiring drugs from a spot, how many different police officers would have access to the drugs from the scene?
It's different in every single call. So if a police officer, depending on the nature of the call that a police officer responds to, and I hope I'm answering your question correctly, you could have a number of officers that attend a call and have the same access to potentially drugs or any other evidence. Or you may go to a call and there may be only one officer that has access to those drugs or that evidence. But we do have, there's rigor that goes to our selection and our hiring. And there's an amount of faith that we have in all our officers to conduct their duties appropriately. And in this case, it is alleged that this member went below those thresholds, right?
Has he ever faced any discipline before for any other previous times?
You know, I can't get into that because that makes up his personal human resources information.
Okay, any other questions? All right.
Okay, thank you.
So actually, I do have one other question. There's a bit about regarding his pay, his compensation. Can you update us on the status of that? And
Yep.
what comes next and what the whole process?
So right now he's been relieved from duty with pay for 7 days, and our organization is going to have an opportunity to review that with the best information we have possible, and that'll happen over the next potentially week or longer to make sure we're making the correct decision as to whether or not this member continues to be paid or not, which is the same in any case when a member is suspended for criminal activity.
So for right now, it's next 7 days?
Yes.
Okay.
Before it's reviewed. Yes.
Okay. And what circumstance, what are you looking for when you say, should this member's pay continue?
It's different in every circumstance is different. So it's a discussion that we have to have with our legal department and our senior executive to make sure that all the information from this file specifically or any other file is reviewed on its own merits, and the best decision for that particular case is made.
What is the rationale for paying for an officer's salary who is accused of a crime like this?
Well, the rationale is in this case it's an allegation, so potentially this officer could be found not guilty.
If he is, would he be welcome back?
If he's found guilty,
Not guilty.
not guilty. If he's found not guilty at that time, then an internal process under the police regulations would take place. And it's very tough to speculate at this point what would happen in either the criminal matter or any matters.
So I have another question as well. So November 2015, June 3rd, 2016, that particular timeline, is that a normal amount of time for this kind of operation? Is it a little bit on the long side, a little on the short side? You wish it might have happened faster?
You know, this was a significant and complex investigation, so, you know, it isn't considered a long investigation, but there were a number of investigative techniques utilized and explored during the whole 7 months, which allow our investigators to make sure that they have an opportunity to continually review information coming in, work with external partners that they have to work with, and basically make sure that the investigation itself is properly proceeding. And one of those partners is obviously the Crown.
Has he been cooperative?
You know, at this point, I'm not sure how he's been dealt with. My understanding is yes, but I don't have much information about how that's gone.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
all.